Yes, loud noises. Okay. Yeah. That that was an actual attempt, all right? That was definitely some type of that was definitely some type of hit there. Yeah, refresh, 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 folks. All good again. Hey, mister, how's it going? Hey, Lee Spanner, how's it going? Tina resubscribing for 8 months. How's it going? Howdy, howdy. Okay, there we go. All right, folks. Listen, the CIA, NSA, any other little alphabet uh, agencies is not gonna prevent me from talking. All right. Hey, my NSA agent fixed it. They better have. Folks, if you have 5 seconds, please consider checking out twitch.tv/Tina_2. Please go show some support. All right, thank you guys for hanging in there. Whew. I don't know why. This time it was not. It was nothing to do with my internet. The reality is that my laptop decided to give me the blue screen of death. Mayhem Hippie cheering with 8 biddies. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you guys. My laptop gave me the good old blue screen of death. Usually when that happens, it's probably because for some reason it got completely overloaded. I don't know why. Something was acting weird on the hardware end. So, I don't know. This time it wasn't the ISP. Yeah, it just freaked out for some reason. I'm just making sure we got everything going. Yeah, it seems like everything is fine. Yeah, I think we got everything going. All right, cool. Buy laptop? No, not yet. I gotta run this one to the ground. I think the next investment is to get a used, refurbished or used, I guess. Figure it out. I'll figure it out. Like Mac Mini or something that I can use as a sole platform. All right, we're good. We're good. Everything looks everything looks good. All right. We got to continue, folks, because we've got a lot of stuff and unfortunately not a lot of time. For the first time in my adult life, I'm shopping for a shiny brand new laptop that I can use as a write-off for work. Nice. I mean, needless to say, this isn't like the top of the top of the top, right? I mean, this is um, what I could afford. That would kind of give me as much the bare minimum firepower to, run the stream and whatnot. I mean, it's useful because I can pick this up and stream from my parents' house or wherever, but, Okay, great. All right, folks, let's get the show on the road, yeah? Kentucky lawmakers block abortion access with new law effective immediately. That's right, folks. Kentucky effectively suspended legal abortion access on Wednesday as the legislature enacted a sweeping anti-abortion law that took effect right away and forces providers to stop offering abortions until they can meet certain requirements. Yeah, the impact the impact of the law makes Kentucky the first U.S. state without legal abortion access since 1973. Supreme Court case Roe v. Wade established the right to end a pregnancy before the fetus is viable, abortion providers say. Abortion rights activists say that they will challenge the bill in court. The law imposes requirements that clinics say make it too logistically difficult and expensive to operate, including a provision requiring that fetal remains be cremated or interred. What? It calls for a combination of birth, death, or stillbirth certificates to be issued for each abortion, and it bans abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, a Democrat, vetoed the bill on Friday, but the Republican majority House and Senate overrode his veto on Wednesday. In his veto letter, Beshear expressed concern that the bill did not include exceptions for abortions in cases of rape or incest. Yeah, again, this is like a trend, right? This is like a continuous trend. Among Republican lawmakers. Isn't that a little bit weird that it keeps happening? Where they make these draconian authoritarian laws for abortion. And they never quite make exceptions for rape and incest. Isn't that like weird? Like a kind of like a self-report, yeah? That's very telling. New York and Vermont, it's still illegal after 13 weeks, not justifying. Yikes. That's messed up. That's not right. That's not right at all. In his veto letter, Beshear expressed concern that the bill did not include exceptions for abortions in cases of rape or incest and said it was likely unconstitutional because of the requirements it imposed on providers. Rape and incest are violent crimes. Victims of these crimes should have options. Yeah, but like I said, it's kind of a self-report, yeah? No, that was just a bot. The legislature overrode several other of Beshear's vetoes on Wednesday, including a bill banning trans girls from playing trans girl sports. Two provisions in the abortion legislation hinder the state abortion clinic from operating, according to Planned Parenthood's Kentucky State Director Tamara Wider. The first is a requirement that the State Board of Pharmacy certify providers who dispense abortion pills. What? People thought that was a slippery slope, yeah? Well, okay. Pharmacy certifies providers who dispense abortion pills. Until abortion providers are certified, they are prevented from offering medication abortions. So effectively, they're trying to limit what is just basically a pill. Why would they... Yeah, why would we hold rapists accountable? Don't we just usually... Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Uh, it depends, though. Mayhem hippie. It just depends. But as I was saying, it's not a slippery slope, as they're trying to limit the medication abortions, which, by the way, are usually at the point in time before 15 weeks. Usually they're like the earliest abortions are usually done with just like pills. It's a medication. And they are trying to figure out ways of bottlenecking it, limiting it in every way that they possibly can. This is such a sore topic. In New York, you can't access Plan B after 8 weeks. What? That's so messed up. Like, why? Who are you? Who are you to limit like what people can and cannot do with their own bodies? Each R state got a new law of sorts. Yeah, it seems to me like a wave. Ever since that Texas law wasn't challenged, it seems like they feel across the board emboldened, since the Supreme Court refused to take up that Texas law. For now, anyways. For now, anyways, they feel like they got, the go ahead. The second is a requirement that fetal remains be cremated or interred, which places logistical and cost burdens on the clinics that they cannot sustain. Right. This is how they do it, folks. The bill also bans telehealth for medication abortions, requiring an in person doctor visit for patients seeking to end their pregnancy by pill, which again, it's literally a pill. It is at the most earliest stages, which most of them are done this way, and they're trying to limit it. They're trying to actually curtail these abortion pills. Republican-led states have been quickly passing ever stricter abortion bans because they are authoritarians, with the anticipation that an impending Supreme... Oh yeah, I literally just said this. Maybe I should have just read the article. With the anticipation that an impending Supreme Court decision could help the bans withstand legal challenges. On Tuesday, Oklahoma's governor signed a near-total abortion ban that is due to take effect in August. Nice. Conservatism, folks, not even once. Why the boldness again is my question. Oh, because they think that they have a supermajority in the Supreme Court that will protect them. And to be quite honest, I think there's legitimacy for that. That's why they're acting in this manner, because they feel like the Supreme Court, with their supermajority, will protect them. The Supreme Court is expected to rule by the end of June on a case involving a Republican-backed Mississippi law that gives its conservative majority a chance to undermine or even repeal the landmark 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling that legalized abortion nationwide. The midterms? No, I mean, maybe. But I think it's more like they've been chipping away at this for a while, and they finally have a friendly Supreme Court that they could appeal to. They finally have a friendly Supreme Court that they can appeal to, and this is if there ever was a time it would be now. If there ever was a perfect opportunity, it would be now. If Roe v. Wade could withstand a super majority in the Supreme Court, then it's GG. Midterms are coming as well. Got to rally those buried heads in the sand out to vote. Yeah, I guess that is a. I mean, it's definitely an issue for a lot of these radical like fundamentalists, for these radical Christian fundamentalists. So yeah, I mean that's true. During arguments in the case, the conservative justices signaled a willingness to dramatically curtail abortion rights in the U.S. A little of this and a little of that, true. Hey, Elio, how's it going? My mother-in-law is staunchly against abortion. She's on her way to work at a Catholic church right now. Sheesh. I mean, like, if you don't like abortions or you feel like it's some moral problem for you, then don't have one. Easy peasy. Don't have one. Had to shake off dust out of the fans and adjust the laptop. Oof. Yeah, we just I don't know if you were here earlier, Alio, but we had the blue screen of death knock us out. There's a difference between being against abortion and setting laws based on religious viewpoints. Yeah, well, here, they're both. They're one and the same, right? The folks who are generally speaking, not not an absolute, but generally speaking, against abortion are overwhelming radical religious fundamentalist. There's a yes, the culture out here is so sad. Oof. I mean, like, if you feel like abortion is such a moral wrong, then don't have one. That's the whole point of the pro-choice argument. That is literally the entire premise of the pro-choice argument. It's just don't tell people what to do. Don't impose, or I should say, don't impose your will on other people. Easy peasy. If you don't like it, don't do it. It is asinine. It should trigger people. Like, as a woman, why is a religion I do not believe in getting to dictate what I can and cannot do with my body? That's a very good question. Because they are authoritarians. Anyone who is agreeing with this, regardless of party, is authoritarian by nature. You want the authority to want to tell other people what they can and cannot do with their body. Morally and ethically bankrupt. True. I agree. And the reason why I keep harping on this and bringing it out to the forefront is because, well, it is a trend that conservatives are riding on and feel emboldened to become more and more authoritarian. And people, for some reason in these states, are okay with it, despite the fact that overall, even amongst registered Republicans, even then, abortion, pro-choice arguments are generally more favorable than not. It's not good for society to make women have babies they don't want, all the while telling them they're going to hell if they use contraception. Right? Yeah, like that's just some weird cult stuff right there. Like that's just weird. It's boring AF in the country while there's literally nothing else to do, especially while cutting funding for social programs for kids. Right, which is never like that. That's why the whole idea of pro-life, or we just want to save the children or something, is never really the end goal, right? Because you can't tell me that you're pro-life while cutting crucial social programs, not only for kids, but for America, for across the board. What's the difference? It's still religious viewpoint dictating what the population can do. It's hypocrisy at its finest. True. Anyways, this is the trend that is continuing to happen, so eyes open, folks. Alright, here we have a juicy story. To kind of continue our coverage, I have no doubt that my mother-in-law wants to save babies. It's the leadership making a non-issue into a voting issue. Right. Leave people the F alone. Simple as that. You can't simultaneously believe in small government and want the federal government going around dictating what you can and cannot do with people's bodies. Okay? Come on. One or the other, folks. Either you're okay with a top-down command on people's bodies, or you're not, or you're for small government. Pick one. Jason Sullivan, a right-wing communications specialist and former associate of Republican political consultant Roger Stone, held a call 1 week before the January 6th storming in which he urged Trump supporters to go to the Capitol to make lawmakers sweat about certifying President Joe Biden's 2020 election win. Well, tacit admission that they knew that the election was done, and they knew who was the legitimate winner. Quote, if we make the people inside that building sweat and they understand that they may not be able to walk in the streets any longer if they do the wrong thing, then maybe they'll do the right thing. What is this, like, mafia tactic? A House Select Committee investigating the January 6th riot has been focused on whether any planning or organizing led to the mob of Trump supporters breaching the Capitol, and the Justice Department has separately brought charges against more than 700 people allegedly involved in the riot. The DOJ has also called a grand jury that is broadly focused on pro-Trump rallies that took place between the November 20 and January 6, 2021, which recently issued a subpoena to right-wing activist Ali Alexander. The January 6 committee has possessed the recorded call featuring Sullivan for months, but it is not clear if the DOJ was aware of it. Sullivan appeared at a far-right Patriot Roundup event in Dallas last summer where he made gestures suggesting Hillary Clinton should be hanged. Holy yikes. Listen, I don't exactly like Hillary Clinton, but to my knowledge, I have never called for the Robloxing of a political opponent. Can I, as a liberal, apply to the same thinking and bring it to the streets without repercussions? No. Yeah, right. They would call you anti-American, anti-American communist, insurrectionist, terrorist. That's what they would call you. Sullivan encouraged Trump supporters to descend on the Capitol as a part of a plan to put pressure on lawmakers to block the election certification. I mean, like, what was the what was the end game here, right? Like, they have to have known that none of this was going to work, right? He reportedly added that he expected then-President Trump to put a limited form of martial law in place on January 6th in response. Oh my god. So basically, they wanted to create a scenario. You see, like, this is why I just don't buy the idea that this was 100% spontaneous. Some of those folks, even if it's a tiny minority, even if it's a tiny part of those tens of thousands that were there, some of those folks were there for a purpose and planned and had plans. In this alleged report here, what they wanted to do was create a scenario that would require martial law to be imposed, and that's how they would retain Donald Trump as their dear leader. According to the Times, at least one person on the call was a member of the right-wing militia group First Amendment Praetorian, whose leader was subpoenaed by the January 6th committee. It is not clear if Sullivan or anyone on the call breached the Capitol, and Sullivan has not been charged with a crime. Sullivan told the Times that his comments were, quote, not intended to incite violence or any kind of riots. What? Yeah, okay, buddy. Listen, if you continue to perpetuate the narrative that there's something not right with the elections, that it was stolen from you, that you need to fight like hell, that you need to get wild, that you need to save your country from this vague posting, insert vague existential crisis. I mean, like, what did you think was going to happen? Already on that domestic terror list for camping without a permit in a national forest. Hi, Bob. If this was on the other side making these kind of remarks, we would all be in prison. Well, a lot of these folks are going to prison. I get that there's like a lack, a lack of willingness to be as forceful. If it would be otherwise in our side, But nonetheless, there are some folks going to jail, especially the um, the Oathkeeper folks. Um, I want to say, was it Oath? Not the Oathkeepers, the Proud Boys. Some of the folks in the Proud Boys are going to face some serious stuff. The leader, I think, of the Oathkeepers is guilty of sedition. So yeah, there are some serious, some serious crackdowns coming. But I get what you're saying. Nothing says failure. Lose Twitter account. Get COVID. Have 7-day rallies daily and still complain. Uh, yeah, I don't think he's gonna stop like having rallies. Whether or not he runs, this dude's gonna be doing his constant fleecing, of his supporters. On point. Look at the BLM and Occupy movements. They hauled us off without hesitation. Right, right. I mean, like, what's very notable, just to kind of piggyback off that point, is that these agencies, like the FBI and all that, had knowledge because, well, these morons were posting stuff on social media. Everybody knew. Everybody knew that some wild incident could happen. And yet they managed to drop the ball every step of the way. For some reason, that incident didn't require the necessary attention. They kind of just like, oh yeah, this is going to happen. Let's inform people. And then like they just managed to drop the ball at every point. Yeah, okay. I mean, it could just be easily as chalked off to gross incompetence, but it's just kind of weird. So this is another turn of events, right? I mean, this is classic. This is classic stochastic terrorism, essentially, right? I'm not saying everybody should go, do an insurrection. I'm not saying everybody should go do a riot. I'm just saying that there's absolutely no possible recourse for you to air your grievances based on dubious, if not outright false, false claims of some a problem that just never happened. Yeah. Amazon said Wednesday that for the first time in company history, it will charge sellers a 5% fuel. Oh, yeah, I know. Greedy AF. It's taken 2 years to get these people charged. Ignore warnings. Oh, yeah, like that's my that's my crux, right? Like they knew about this. They knew about this. Which is again unbelievably weird. If a group like the Rainbow Family Mafia decided to formalize and organize, we would not be hearing about it. Most of them would be hauled off in record numbers. Just look at nationals every year. Extreme violence and militarized units walking around unarmed Americans with AK-47s just for large gatherings in the national forest. Yeah, well, if people start realizing that we could do so much better, we could have a better place by working together. That's a thought, but of course they're not going to allow that any sort of progress. The e-commerce giant said the new fuel fee will begin April 28th and be imposed because of inflation has worsened significantly in recent months. Yeah. I the other side to that coin is can we get a graph of the record profits of Amazon? Can we just get that? Can, can we get that also? Um, explain to me what the justification. Like, I would really like the justification from Amazon that they need to necessarily impose this, and then like side by side show the show the profits that they had this year, because guaranteed that especially during the pandemic, especially during the pandemic uh, era, acting as if it's gone, but during the height of the pandemic, um, everyone that could was using Amazon to get their stuff delivered because everyone who could was trying to avoid going out, so on and so forth. They made record profits. Maybe, maybe Uber and Lyft might have an excuse because of gas. Maybe. Like many, we experienced significant cost increase and absorbed them wherever possible to reduce the impact on our selling partners. Yeah, okay. Okay, buddy. Amazon profit graph shown from space, true. It is the only place we could get items. We live in the middle of nowhere, like the closest Walmart is 45 minutes away. In fair weather, it was a trap. Sheesh. Yeah, this is so can we why is this article not putting side by side the record profits that Amazon has made? Explain to me why this article does not put the record profits side by side, and then tell me what the justification is to increase whatever prices for sellers who are, generally speaking, probably small businesses who are putting their services or products on Amazon, right? Jesus Christ. Amazon spokesperson Patrick Graham told CNN that the fee surcharge only applies to fee rates paid by sellers that choose to use Amazon's fulfillment service, which includes storing, packing, and shipping products. Other sellers that do not use fulfillment by Amazon will not be impacted. Yeesh. Catch 22, Achieva Corporation. Do you want to give your money because you need to wipe your butt? Uh, that's a good meme. That's a good meme. The answer is, well, it really doesn't matter, does it? Anyways, that's a good meme. Of course, taking advantage. Taking advantage of inflation or whatever. Instead of just making, like, maybe just a little bit less money this time, while folks who are struggling to make ends meet don't need, these surcharges. 5% is a lot. 5% is a lot. It doesn't maybe seem like much, but 5% is a lot. Greed is the name of the game, folks. All right, let's take a look at this. I think this is interesting.
Okay, well, thanks very much.
Okay, actually, folks, yeah, let's get through this one really quickly. Um, some of the opinions of Noam Chomsky. It is now, however, that Chomsky said we're facing the prospect of the destruction of human life on Earth. Climate change has been on the central topic of Chomsky's most recent works, in which he writes about the inextricable tie between global warming and capitalism. He has deemed Earth as unsalvageable within the timescale that capitalist countries such as the US have made it for it, even with the establishment of policies committed to decrease carbon output. I disagree with the unsalvageable. Okay. I disagree with the unsalvageable because that's not just like that's not what we have, right? As far as what the consensus of the scientific community has put forth, it is not unsalvageable. However, it's going to look really, really bad if we don't get it together. Okay. And I agree. There is inextricable ties between global warming and capitalism. It's in fact perpetuated. That's how this continues without any solutions. He listed Trump's policies focusing on maximizing fossil fuels and cutting back regulations that address climate change. Yeah, during the Trump presidency, absolutely. 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 Chomsky also liked Trump's fanaticism to Hitler's Nazi rallies, describing in particular the strong base of Republicans against addressing climate change as truly dangerous insurgency. He described the party's disregard of global warming as a death warrant for humankind. Certainly, it is horrifying that in 2022, with access to all the information of the world, and yet we're still having folks who are actively working against just the consensus of international scientists, an international coalition of scientists saying that X is happening. That's the point that I wanted to bring out here. If you want to see the full interview, It's about an hour long. It's in the beginning here.
Finally, here are some.
Alright, we were cut off yesterday, right at this point. Folks, if you have like 5 seconds, please go show some support to this channel.
Fourth round of UN talks failed to finalize a treaty to manage the high seas. Coal mining has been found to emit more methane than venting and flaring from gas and oil wells. The process to remove PFAS from water emits greenhouse gases. Astronomy's contribution to climate change rivals emissions from some countries. The National Health Service is set to miss its 2040 net zero targets without urgent action. The Maldives green-lighted constructive dredging to build housing and luxury resorts. Despite warnings, a destructive African dam moves ahead. Australia's carbon credit scheme could take years to recover from a price plunge, analysts say. The North Sea Cambo oil field has been given a 2-year extension. EU launches its first World Trade Organization challenge against Britain over green subsidies, specifically for offshore wind. The UK chose to pay back £640,000 to fracking firms after their shale gas ban. Ghost flights from the UK are running at $500 a month, data reveals. Britain hands billions to projects linked to labor abuse and climate damage. Colombia's environmental authority approved the country's first fracking pilot project. And a new BC initiative is calling on schools to ban all fossil fuel advertising starting after a parent noticed that the kid was getting assignments designed by Forbes BC, the province's largest gas provider. In the US, Dr. Oz, who's running for Senate, supports fracking, but in the past he has spoken against the human health implications of fracking, so he's conflicted to say the least.
He's not just conflicted. Dr. Oz is completely in another dimension. He's living in a literal alternate reality.
As the U.S. rushes after the minerals for the energy transition, a 150-year-old law allows mining companies free reign of public lands. Duke Energy's solar plan is being questioned by North Carolina's Attorney General. The first energy utility gave to a pro-Trump dark money group. Californians are saving less water as drought worsens. Tennessee Valley Authority chooses gas, undermining Biden's climate goals. A bill to override local control of pipelines in Tennessee spurs statewide backlash. And a lot of methane is leaking out of New Mexico's oil and gas wells. Finally, here are some other chemical news headlines. A new study looks at the emissions and public health implications over the upstream processes for oil and gas. Chemicals from tires linked to mass salmon die-off in the US has now also been found in Australia for the first time. Side note, but do people spell tires with a Y outside of the US? I didn't know that. One of the world's most toxic towns is in Zambia, where lead mines are. Koch Industries has chosen to stay in the Russian market. Of course they have. By the way, there's a new campaign for universities called Uncoke My Campus to discourage donations from Koch Industries.
That's a good name.
Microplastics
I like that.
have now been found in the human blood. And in the US, tribal nations are facing worsening air quality while most parts of the US are actually getting better. The Edwardsville pipeline in Illinois leaked an estimated 165,000 gallons of oil. Oregon has the most polluted waterways in the US.
Sheesh. Yes, they do, and it messes me so bad. Well, the only correct spelling is, of course, our spelling.
according to a new analysis. Plastic recycling is emissions heavy, and actually usually the plastic just gets turned into combustible fuel in the US. And the EPA's new chemicals division is rife with corruption and toxicity. And
Yikes.
that was the climate recap from March 16th to 31st. Whew, goodness. Which new headlines did you find the most interesting? Let me know in the comment section below. I hope y'all are doing well, by the way. I have been busy as ever. I'm working on a method that will hopefully cut down on the time it takes for me to do these recaps while increasing the content that I can release. But ironically, that process has made this video a bit late, so sorry about that. And I hope to give you guys more information on what I was referring to in a bit. And I really do hope to do a video about the new IPCC report, but we'll see where I can squeeze that time in. I still have to do my taxes too. Oh, adulting is fun. Until next time, remember to talk about the climate crisis every single day and to support your local news organizations. Thank you to the people on Patreon who helped me pay for my equipment and the many new subscriptions that make these climate recaps possible.
True. All right, go support the channel. I write international blog content for a living. My spell check does not accept tires. Right, because it's incorrect. That is incorrect. Alright, let's check this article out. As climate fears mount, some are relocating within the US. What? Really? No way. Tell that to the UK, New Zealand, and Australia? I don't know what those countries are. I don't know. Are they real? At first, the Ashland area of South Oregon, which Oregon made as she said earlier, Oregon made the list. That's the top polluted waters in the country. Seemed like a great place for Mission Force Brazil to raise their kids. It had natural beauty, plenty of open space, and a family-friendly atmosphere. But after they moved from the San Francisco Bay Area in 2015, high summer temperatures, water shortages, and wildfire smoke became regular features of their lives, forcing them to wear face masks well before COVID, and leading them to question whether the area was the right place for them. Then came September of 2020 when Forrest Brazil stepped out of their rented house and had to cover his face because of smoke, dust, and debris from a fire about 3 miles away that was being waterbombed by firefighting planes and had provoked a panicky high-speed evacuation on a nearby interstate. After 5 years of living with this fire season, it was clear that to him that this was no ordinary wildfire. So he grabbed his children, gathered a few important documents from the house, and called his wife to say that they were getting out. They picked her up and checked into a hotel, where Forrest received a call from their landlord. The house is gone. What? Sheesh. And forwarded a photo taken by the neighbor showing that their home had burned to the ground. Oh my goodness, can you imagine being in that situation? It was at that moment they knew that they could no longer stay in a tinder dry western state when they became climate migrants. The house is gone. It took a couple of times saying that, and I showed her the photo. It was just a shock. Now what do we do? Yeah, mind you, this isn't, again, something that's like an ephemeral, amorphous, abstract concept that isn't going to hit us hard right now. It's going to, maybe in a couple of years, maybe in a couple of decades, maybe the next generation, maybe. No, this is happening right now. Like a growing number of Americans, the Brazil family realized that they could no longer live in a place where they faced soaring temperatures and worsening wildfires driven by climate change. Yeah, and, well, folks who live on the coast will have to face sea level rise, and depending on where you are, you may have to face stronger hurricanes. Folks in the Midwest may face harsher droughts, harsher flooding. Almost no matter where you are, you will be experiencing some type of negative effect from climate change in some way, shape, or form. And so they decided it was time. Well, they didn't decide. Their house burned to the ground because of climate change. That's it's not really a choice, is it? They didn't decide that. Hey Kevin, how's it going? Howdy, howdy. Did you see the fire warning from New Mexico to Nevada, like 6 states all the way to Mississippi Valley for the next few days? All due to extreme storms sucking in the dry air. Sheesh. Welcome to the new norm. Welcome to the new norm. Yeah, that's right. God decided that. Driven by climate change, so they decided it was time to move to a less vulnerable part of the country. They chose New England, where Mitch, a psychologist, got a transfer from her employer, the U.S. Veterans Administration, to its office in White River Junction, Vermont. After more than a year of living in a series of temporary accommodations near their former Oregon home, they moved last October to an apartment in Enfield, New Hampshire, close to the Vermont border, where they have begun to rebuild their lives. Mind you, these folks probably are a little bit on the luckier side because, well, it isn't exactly cheap to rebuild your life, right? You know, to be able to even have that ability is already more than what most people, have here. White River Junction got slammed by ice this season. Yeah, like there's no escaping the effects of climate change. I can't tell you how many times we looked at a map of the whole country and said, where do you want to live? Forrest said in a basement apartment where they now live with their children's ages 5, 3, and 1. The West Coast was no longer an option. The Midwest didn't appeal. Yeah, because there's drought, there's and also flooding that has become unusual. And then looking out here, we don't have to worry about the drought and fires. We don't have to worry about smoke and heat. Yeah, you'll have your own, problems too. But I suppose not as much. Hey, Maple Leaf Dragon. The Mississippi River Basin. People still like having annual indoor swimming pools, also known as the living room. Sheesh. After being forced out of their home, the Brazil family joined the other Americans, escaping the worsening impacts of climate change. Oh, it's gonna get worse than this, that's for sure. These migrants include New Orleans residents who fled their city after Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and Houstonians who were driven out by flooding from Hurricane Harvey in 2017. Other communities have begun to disappear entirely. Residents of coastal Louisiana community Isle de Jean Charles, which sits just a foot or two above sea level, are being pushed out by rising seas. Right, so it doesn't matter where you are. Inhabitants of coastal native Alaskan villages such as Shimeref and Nutok, where more intense storm surges have caused by declining sea ice, are eroding coasts, weakening, and by melting permafrost are being relocated. We had the worst snow season this year. No heat. Sheesh. But only record highs the last 2 years in Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, and Massachusetts. Sheesh. Increasingly worsening climate effects, including heat waves, wildfires, floods, droughts, sea level rise, are leading a growing number of Americans to have second thoughts about where they are living and to decide to move to places that are perceived less exposed to these impacts. Yeah, but that requires money, okay? According to anecdotal reports and a growing volume of academic research, some, like the Brazil family, are forced to move to safer areas, while others are well-to-do homeowners who are choosing to leave before the fire or floods drive them out. How will people deal with extreme heat? Will they have access to potable water? Asked Jesse Keenan, an associate professor of real estate in Tulane University School of Architecture. Temperate northern states will get the most inbound migration. Keenan, who studies the intersection of climate change and adaptation and built and the built environment estimated that 50 million Americans could eventually move within the country to regions such as New England or upper Midwest in search of a haven from severe climate impacts. Yeah, and that's just here. That's just here. He predicted that migration driven by increasingly uninhabitable coastal areas is likely to happen sooner rather than later. Yeah. Citing the latest federal estimate that the U.S. coastal sea levels would rise about as much as a foot in 2050. 2050 is not a lot of time, folks. 30 years, less than that. 28 years. We will be I will be alive to see that. By Matthew Hauer, an assistant professor of sociology at FSU, is that 13.1 million Americans will relocate because of sea level rise alone by 2100, based on projections that seas along the U.S. coast will rise about an average of 1.8 meters or nearly 6 feet by then. Jesus. I saw record storm this year. They're literally stretching from the Gulf to the northern border. How can people continue to ignore these blatant signs of climate change? Yeah, well, unfortunately, it is unbelievable how effective, not just like the idea of politicizing this, but the greenwashing and, quite frankly, the corruption in our government and the unbelievable amount of money being poured to make us believe that this isn't like a big deal or there aren't people responsible for this. Yeah. In my area, we still get a mix of extreme heat and occasional flooding, so we're by and large still okay. Oosh. Yikes. Roy Parvin and his wife Jeanette Vale, several years of living with wildfires around their home in Northern California's Sonoma County, finally drove them some 2,600 miles to Asheville, North Carolina, where they pursue their respective careers in writing and publishing, and in a place where they do not have to be worried about fires, heat, or smoke. Well, in 2014, the couple thought they had built their dream home in California town of Cloverdale, but 3 years later, they experienced the first of a series of wildfires that came as close as a quarter-mile to the house. The fires finally convinced them that they could no longer live in the patchy expanses of the American West. We left in 2020 after getting tired of being evacuated in the middle of the night by a policeman saying, "Pack your car, take your dogs, and don't pick up anything and just go." I mean, the question then becomes like, because we haven't seen like the apex of this, right? What happens when people in mass begin to realize that a lot of areas in the Pacific, like California, the coastal areas, like Florida, all these areas are becoming uninhabitable effectively. What's going to happen when it becomes abundantly clear across the board and people start panic selling? Who is going to buy? It's not that most people are ignoring climate change. There are some of those people around. It's that living under decades of corporate corruption and extreme wealth inequality has given the general public no other choices. Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's exactly what I was advising. what's going to happen when it becomes abundantly clear that we're going to have no other choice? Who are you going to sell these houses and properties to? Who are you going to who's going to buy your house that's in a known fire zone? Are nobody's going to buy that? So then it's just gone. It's just done. And for a lot of folks, that's going to be a catastrophic economic uh, problem. Yeah, to Aquaman. Exactly. That's the meme right there. Like, who are you going to sell your house in Florida to? In coastal Florida. No, Thandera. How's it going? Just send it to me. Send that to me. The first story that we went over, those folks got, I don't want to say lucky, but they didn't own that house. So they weren't the ones that had to take the loss necessarily. Like, they didn't have to sell their house. But yeah. Ah.
How to connect with speaker. I haven't given you all a history lesson in a while, and I want to give you a little history on homelessness. 1910, Hitler decided to live on the streets for a while. So for 2 years, Hitler lived on the streets and practiced his oratory and his body language and how to connect with masses, and then went on to lead a life that got him in the history books. So a lot of these people, it's not a dead end. They can come out of these homeless camps and have a productive life, or in Hitler's case, a very unproductive life. I support this bill. Thank you. Speaker, I haven't given you all the history lesson in a while, and I want to give you a little...
What? How do we... What do we do with this? What? How do I... where do we even begin to unpack this? I mean, is it even true that Hitler was homeless for like a while? I don't know. But out of all the freaking examples that you could possibly... Out of all the stories, out of all the examples, literally, you could have just made something up. But no, this is where your mind goes to? Jesus Christ. It is Tennessee. because that's what you're supposed to take from Hitler. Jesus Christ. Yeah, if Hitler... Right, because what you're supposed to take from, Nazi Germany is that if Hitler can rise out of homelessness, so can you. What? I'm sorry, the just clownish absurdity of this. The absurdity of this is like, it is unbelievable. Yes, because the lesson that we're supposed to take from Hitler, is he was homeless and then he became he was homeless and then became a genocidal maniac. Okay. Hey, Fu Manchu, how's it going? I always look to mass murdering failed dictators for inspiration. That's right. Hitler may have done bad things, but he did Roblox Hitler. True. Can I talk about how Justin Trudeau is making it illegal to make any journalistic article that's opposing his party, refusing to give them a license? I feel like there's more to that story. I mean, what do we even say to this? Except, like, man, that's kind of weird that this is where your mind went. Damn, that's oof. That's a bit of a self-report. I mean, where, in what world do you need to make this connection in your head? In what world do you need to make this connection in your head? And that's like, oh yeah, we should. Okay.
Speaker, I haven't.
I can't get over this
in a while, and I want to give you a little history on homelessness.
I'm actually dumbfounded that this is where this guy's mind went. It literally broke my brain for a minute.
1910, Hitler decided to live on the streets for a while. So for 2 years, Hitler lived on the streets and practiced his oratory and his body language and how to connect with masses, and then went on to lead a life that got him in the history books. So
yeah, that's literally what he just said. Yeah. Did he say he led a life that got him into the history books? Yeah. That's one way of putting it. Jesus.
a lot of these people, it's not a dead end. They can come out of these homeless camps and have a productive life, or in Hitler's case, a very unproductive life. I support this bill.
Wait, how can you simultaneously say that? What? This doesn't even make sense. Because wasn't his argument that wasn't his original statement, or I guess argument point, was that Hitler was homeless and he made something out of himself. He got himself into the history books, as he says, but then said he lived an unproductive life? Wait, so which one is it? Like, this is a 30-second clip and he contradicts himself. His whole entire thing doesn't even make sense. This is why it broke my brain. I think that's why. Not only because, like, the absurdity of, like, the story that he needs to use, the absurdity that we should be drawing. Yes, Hitler attempted to make something himself, and therefore it is possible for people to get out of homelessness. Let's just take that absurdity for a second, aside for a second. But he said Hitler lived a unproductive life within the same sentence. When your ultra-right-wing party caters and kowtows to little Nazis is unsurprising true.
Streets for a while. So for 2 years, Hitler lived on the streets and practiced his oratory and his body language and how to connect with masses, and then went on to lead a life that got him in the history books. So a lot of these people, it's not a dead end. They can come out of these homeless camps and have a productive life, or in Hitler's case, a very unproductive life.
Or in Hitler's case, a very unproductive life. So if your entire premise, again, just taking the absurdity aside just for like a split second, his argument was because X person got himself into the history books for, being a genocidal maniac, you too can lift yourself out of homelessness. But then simultaneously said, or in this person's case, unproductive. Consistency is not their forte, true. You might have too high standards for the GOP. Consistency is not their forte. Yeah. Like, it broke my brain for a good 2 minutes, okay? But now that I'm kind of reeling it back in, none of this makes sense. The bare minimum of not using fucking Hitler as an inspirational figure is too much for them. Right, but it didn't even apply. It doesn't make sense. How do these people get elected? This is just unbelievable. Like, it literally didn't... It broke my brain, first of all, because of the absurdity of it all. And then, like, it just doesn't make sense on its own. The GOP definition of unproductive: didn't live to old age and got rich on corruption. Yeah. Yeah, we aren't Nazis. Also uses Nazi propaganda. Yeah, why bring that up if it didn't even apply? Because, well, they gotta throw in the parallels to Nazi German. It's just so weird. Like, why do you need to do this? So bizarre. Well. Hold on, I got you. I'm just so flabbergasted. I'm just so flabbergasted. Okay. Nice one, GOP. Nice one. If you want people to stop associating you with, like, Nazi stuff, or if you want people to stop saying that, it's kind of weird how, like, these far right, like, policies, rhetoric seem to keep coming up, then maybe just not engage in that. Just saying. This happens a lot. They bring up Hitler and we talk about it for a little and nothing happens. Yeah, like, this is just unbelievable to me. This actually unironically broke my brain. They should get censured for wasting time and saying dumb shit, Drew. Unbelievable. Well, that's a GOP for you, folks. That was a good meme. Oh my god, that's so weird. All right, we're gonna finish this story over here before moving on. Hold on. As they became convinced that they could no longer live in Sonoma, they briefly considered Bend, Oregon, but they dismissed that because of two had fire problems. They looked at Austin, Texas, but decided it would be too hot. They concluded it was time for a move out of the West altogether. The couple decided to move to Asheville after visiting it on a book tour. They put their house up for sale 10 days before the COVID lockdown, and it was quickly sold. What? Despite the fire risk and a simultaneous exodus by some of their neighbors, any doubt they had made the right move was erased in 2021 with another fire destroyed a mountain cabin and they had sold when they moved. Like, how do people not connect this? All right, these folks sold their... First of all, the fact that it even sold is just beyond me. Somebody decided that this was a good investment, and, well, it burned down. All right, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there will be people who decide that they're going to buy a property that's about to get engulfed by the sea. You know what? Maybe I could be wrong. Wait, hold on. How did this guy even know that? Wait a minute. How did this, like, guy even know that? Is that a real anecdote? And if so, like, that's kind of a weirdly specific anecdote to know. Huh. It just clicked in my head. That is a very oddly specific anecdote to know. Because in order for you to know that, if it's true, you would have had to study or know this because, well, maybe there are a lot of Hitler biographies out there. Yeah, but that's just oddly specific. Hmm. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too deep into that. Maybe he just knew that. I don't know. All right. So, yeah, even though we didn't own the cabin at the time of its demise, Lost did confirm that we made the right decision. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm 1,000% wrong. Maybe somebody would spend money to buy a house that's like in danger of being engulfed by the sea. Maybe in a couple of decades, I'll be eating my own words. My prediction was that, well, at least here for Florida, was that people would, there would be a mass panic once people got like the general sense of like how effed things are, and would just start like panic selling, and realizing that they don't have buyers for properties that are about to go, under. But I don't know, man. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm 1,000% wrong. Haven 64, he and Vale 63 were Cloverdale's first climate refugees, all of who were able to sell their homes for high prices, typically to wealthy San Franciscans who wanted weekend homes. What? Bro, this is a fire zone in the mountains. Despite the fire risk, it's a part of the insanity of California. While Rome burns, they're partying. Yeah, this doesn't make any sense. This literally doesn't make any sense. Proof that others aren't as concerned about climate impacts as the Parvins can be seen in the large in-migration of people during the pandemic to places like Montana, which faces its own wildfire and water threats, Texas, where temperatures are steadily rising and are expected to soar this century, and Florida, where rising seas are projected to flood many coastal areas by 2100. Right, like, what? Really? Man. I'm gonna end up eating my own words. If there are gonna be people, as these things start to go under, who will buy these houses. Wow. Purple Dragon Crew, how's it going? The proof of how out-of-touch rich people are is that new planned multi-billion-dollar residential complex that's going to be built near the coast. Yeah, we went over that, Maple. That was exactly one of the articles that we went over because, well, and part of the IPCC report that we were on, one of the things that they went over was, well, we got to rethink where we build, and we got to stop developing vulnerable coastal areas. I'm moving to California in a week. Yeah, I'm getting out of here. Myself. The products of Christian upbringing and use the same tactics as the religion to recruit followers. One of those tactics. Go walk with the poor and to enamor them. One tried to help the other. I mean, maybe. Certainly they did lean into the whole, Christian thing, didn't they? I'm pretty sure they did. No comprehensive data exists on the scale of America's climate migration, but there's growing local evidence that it is gathering pace. In Vermont, a recent survey of about 30 people who moved into the state from many parts of the US since the start of the pandemic found that at least a third included climate as the reason to relocate. Yeah, I mean, that's a small... Okay, 30 people? Come on, man. But nonetheless, it is undeniable that this is going to be a consistent trend, and it's only going to get worse. That's the TLDR. Yeah, 30-person survey. Like, okay, dude. That's not a compelling evidence, but... Well, yeah, 30 is about the numbers of people who can afford to move. Because that's a whole other thing too, right? has been running the Catholic Orthodox Church declare Putin's invasion a holy war. What? It's kind of weird. All right, we've got one more article to go through before we continue our journey through the IPCC report. We're almost done, folks. We've got, I think we're on page 76. We are definitely getting there. When all else fails, get religious. Yeah, it's always weird. I don't like it. I don't like the whole idea of, like, radical fundamentalists. Did you see One America OAN is getting pulled from AT&T? Yes, I believe, but wasn't that already, like, a thing? I thought that already happened, or... did that already happen, or what? I could have sworn I heard about it. Alright, we've got one more article, and then we head into the IPCC. Oh, but their contract was not up yet. Okay, gotcha. It takes place at the end of the month. Huh. Well, see ya. The climate crisis is supercharging rainfall and hurricane scientists report. Yes, we've gone over some of this too. The rainfall from hurricanes during the deadly record-breaking 2020 season was as much as 11% higher because of the human-caused climate crisis. The study that published in the journal Nature Communications found global warming supercharged hourly rainfall rates in tropical storms and hurricanes by 5 to 10%. Right, like not even like big hurricanes, like just tropical storms too. When they looked at only hurricanes, the strongest storms, the increase was 8 to 11%. What that means is not only is climate change impacting our hurricane season, but it's also impacting the most extreme storms a little bit more. Sheesh. A climate and hurricane scientist at Stony Brook University and lead author of the study. So the key takeaway is that climate change is here and it's already affecting our hurricane seasons. Right, we are expected to experience maybe not an unnecessary increase of storms, but the severity of those storms will be significant. So instead of having the usual handful of major storms, they'll be more common. Usually in every hurricane season, there's always like a handful that are like major storms. Well, that's going to change. That's going to be more and more of those hurricanes are going to be major storms. Hurricanes, also called tropical cyclones or typhoons outside North America, are enormous heat engines of wind and rain feeding on warm ocean water and moist air, which, of course, as the oceans heat, well, yeah. And scientists have become increasingly confident over the years that the climate crisis is making them more potent. Yeah. Behind the storm surge, flooding from rainfall is the second biggest killer in the landfalling hurricanes and tropical storms. Tuesday's study suggests that the threat has already been increasing over the past decades, and will likely increase more in the future because warm air can hold more water vapor, which leads to more higher rainfall rates. Makes sense. Glad I could be here for a bit. I'm watching Ukraine war videos, so you don't have to. Sheesh, Dr. Dragon Rider, don't stay in there too long. Speaking of which, actually in our Discord, Mono, one of our mods, posted a new Channel 5 video. So So you guys can actually watch that too. Russian soldiers dug trenches in the Red Forest, the most polluted area in Chernobyl. Yeah, and a lot of those, if not all, have been experiencing radiation poisoning or illnesses related to that because they kicked up radioactive soil dust or whatever. Yeah, not good. They're all experiencing sickness because of that. What's good, Planeteers? How's it going? KTS Shine, howdy howdy. The 2020 Atlantic hurricane season was the most active on record, with 30 named storms. The season tore through the alphabet so quickly officials had to use Greek letters starting in September. 12 named storms made landfall on the US coast, including Laura and Delta, which devastated parts of the Gulf Coast. The science of climate change attribution, which focuses on how much of a role human-caused global warming played in certain extreme weather events, has made significant advances in the past decade, according to the UN's IPCC. As humans continue to pump greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, Earth will continue to warm and hurricane impacts will become worse. Yeah, I mean, the logic follows, right? Allison Wing, a climate researcher at Florida State University, told CNN that the study aligns with what scientists have predicted. The study is consistent with expert assessment, implies that hurricane rainfall will continue to increase with future warming. Overall, this study adds to our expectation that in a warmer world, we are more at risk from stronger weather storms. Yep. As climate change accelerates, Reid said he expects the strongest storms to have an even higher rainfall rate. What's important to know is that if Hurricane Katrina existed in 2022, if that happened in this upcoming season, the rainfall from that storm would be more than it was in 2005. All these historical records that we've understood in the past when New York is planning to make sure that the impacts of Hurricane Sandy don't happen the same way they did in 2012, we have to plan for what Hurricane Sandy would look like in 2030 or 2040, which again, is well within our lifetime. I mean, at least for me anyways, I'll definitely be alive. Pretty sure I'll be alive in the next 8 years, yeah? As time goes on, we'll need a bigger naming alphabet. Yeah. Unless the world changes course and drastically cuts the use of fossil fuels, Reid said, people should expect progressively worse effects from hurricane seasons. Climate change is not just a problem 70 years from now. Climate change is here, and it's impacting our weather on a day-to-day basis. We need to adapt and make our systems more resilient, but we have to use this as a sense to inform decision-making about how to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels that produce these greenhouse gases. Right, this is the same thing that we've been saying time and time again. Climate change is here. For an hour later? Gotcha, thank you. Wait, actually, this is just a link. I think you copy-pasted my channel. Scientists in 2020 reported another significant change in U.S. hurricanes. They're maintaining their strength long after they make landfall. Typically, hurricanes weaken once they move over land because they have lost access to the warm ocean that sustains them. This means the change means areas farther inland are experiencing more significant impacts than they did in the past decades. Yep. Not good, folks. Alright, folks, quick 5-second chill sesh before we get into it. If you enjoy the channel, don't forget to hit the follow button. Join the Discords by typing !Discord. Head on over to our YouTube channel and hit that big red subscribe button. It does help us out. Please spread the word far and wide that this is the chillest place to be for news and politics, Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Join us for Saturdays around noon Eastern Time. Folks, It really does mean a lot. All your support really does help this channel grow. And if you follow the channel here on Twitch, you get 5 free emotes, one of them being Bakita the cat. How could you say no to that, right? How could you say no to 5 free emotes? One of them being a cat, okay? Thank you, Dr. Dragon Rider. Alright, folks. We are heading into the IPCC part of the stream. There's the link, page 75, folks. A bit of good news, the implementation of renewable energy source is mitigating the carbon and other greenhouse gases that's going into the atmosphere significantly. Oh yeah, absolutely. Every step forward that we make in decoupling ourselves from fossil fuels in whatever ways as quickly as possible is a good thing and has significant impacts, especially down the road. Not just in the, obvious immediate effect of just not having the pollution, but in the long term too. Alright, folks, if you want to hang along with me, make sure you click on the link and head on over to page 75. Or at the bottom of 74, bottom of 75 into 76, I should say. This is where we were last time before we had a problem with our ISP. Oh, here we are. Huh. Okay, I'm gonna check this out. Alright, deep-rooted transformational adaptation opens new options for adapting to the impacts of risk of climate change, high confidence by changing the fundamental attributes of a system, including altered goals or values, and addressing root causes of vulnerability. AR6 focuses on 5 systems of transition to a just and climate-resilient future: social, energy, land and ocean ecosystems, urban and infrastructure, and industrial. These transitions call for transformations in existing social, technological, and environmental systems that include shifts in most aspects of society. Managing transition risk is a critical element of transforming society, increasingly acknowledging the importance of transparent, informed, and inclusive decision-making and evaluation, including a role for indigenous knowledge and local knowledge. A subset of adaptation options have been implemented that cut across sectors that enable sector-specific adaptation responses. These options, such as disaster risk management, climate services, and risk sharing, increase the feasibility and effectiveness of other options by expanding the solution space available. High confidence. For example, carefully designed and implemented disaster risk management and climate services can increase the feasibility and effectiveness of adaptation responses to improve agricultural practices, income diversification, urban and critical systems, and infrastructure planning. Very high confidence. Risk insurance can be a feasible tool to adapt to transfer climate risk and support sustainable development. High confidence. They can reduce both vulnerability and exposure, support post-disaster recovery, and reduce financial burden on governments, households, and businesses. Mayhem Hippie with the 11 biddies. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Listening still at work, and now the rest of the team is finally coming into the office. You have my favorite background reading voices. I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, do a little climate ASMR, I guess. Thank you. I appreciate that. These options are not sufficient for far-reaching transformations. Transformation for energy include the options of efficient water use and water management, infrastructure resilience, and reliable power systems, including the use of intermittent renewable sources such as solar and wind with the use of storage, very high confidence. These options are not sufficient for far-reaching transformations required in the energy sector, which tend to focus on technological transitions from a fossil-based to a renewable energy regime. Resilient power infrastructure is considered for energy generation, transmission, and distribution systems. Distributed generation utilities such as microgrids are increasingly being considered, with growing evidence of their role in reducing vulnerability, especially within undeserved populations. High confidence. Infrastructure, resilience, and reliable power are particularly important in reducing risk in peri-urban and rural areas where they're supported by distributed generation of renewable energy by isolated systems. Actually, I think we went over this because I made a comment of the channel that we watched earlier and yesterday of the Beckosphere. She actually did a interview with somebody, and I'm missing the full details, but she made an interview and made a comment that basically using things like microgrids that are powered by renewables is more not only secure, but it makes the ability for renewables that much more feasible. And it's just a better way of achieving energy independence, right? The option for resilient power infrastructure is considered for all types of power generation sources and transmission and distribution systems. Efficient water use and water management, especially in hydropower and combined cycle power plants in drought-prone areas, have a high feasibility, high confidence, with multiple co-benefits, medium confidence. Water-related adaptation in the energy sector is highly effective up to 1.5 degrees, but declines with increasing warming, medium confidence. Yeah. Which is why that 1.5 was such a important mark that that they made a note of. But you know, adaptation options that are feasible and effective up to the 3.4 billion people living in rural areas around the world and who are especially vulnerable to climate change include the provision of basic services, livelihood diversification, and strengthening of food systems. High confidence. Vulnerability of rural areas to climate risk increases due to the long distance to urban centers, the lack of or deficient critical infrastructure such as roads, electricity, and water. Providing critical infrastructure, including through distributed generation power systems through renewable energy, has provided many co-benefits. High confidence. And biodiversity management strategies have social co-benefits, including improved community health, recreational activities, and ecotourism, which are co-produced by harnessing ecological and social capital to promote resilient ecosystems with high connectivity and functional diversity. This is what we would call positive externalities, a domino effect, if you will. Strengthening local and regional food systems through strategies such as collective trademarks, participatory guarantee systems, and city-rural links build rural livelihoods, resilience, and self-reliance. Medium confidence. Livelihood diversification is a key coping and adapting strategy to climate and non-climatic risks. There's high evidence, medium agreement, that diversifying livelihood improves incomes and reduces socioeconomic vulnerability, but feasibility changes depending on livelihood type, opportunities, and local context. Key barriers to livelihood diversification include social, cultural, and institutional barriers, as well as inadequate resources and livelihood opportunities that hinder the full adaptive possibilities of existing livelihood diversification practices. High confidence. Adaptation can require system-wide transformation of ways of knowing, acting, and lesson drawing to rebalance the relation between humans and nature. True. High confidence. Indigenous knowledge and local knowledge, ecosystem-based adaptation. That is huge, by the way. Ecosystem-based adaptation is what is necessary, right? Not like, not this idea that we're going to build a seawall and that'll take care of it. No. Ecosystem-based adaptation and community-based adaptation are often found together in effective adaptation strategies and actions, and together can generate transformative, sustainable changes, but they need the resources, legal basis, and inclusive decision process to be most effective. Damn, so like a democratic process, right? medium confidence. Governance measures that transparently accommodate science and indigenous knowledge can act as enablers of such co-production. Factors motivating transformative adaptation actions include risk perception, perceived efficacy, social cultural norms and beliefs, previous experience of impacts, levels of education and awareness, medium confidence. Risk responsibilities across the globe are unclear and unevenly defined, high confidence. In the face of climate change, assigning risk responsibility helps upgrading and supporting adaptation Assigning risk responsibility helps upgrading and supporting adaptation efforts, risk governance. There are at least two contrasting approaches for pursuing deliberate transformation, one seeking rapid system-wide change and the other a collection of incremental actions that together catalyze desired system changes. So this provides a binary outlook. However, I think that there are some things that just cannot be incremental. There are certain things that just cannot be incremental, and that's got to be taken into account. Actually, let me make this bigger. There we go. Climate resilient development. Climate resilient development implements greenhouse gas mitigation and adaptation options to support sustainable development. With accelerated warming and intensification of cascading impacts and compounded risks above 1.5 degrees warming, there's a sharply increasing demand for adaptation and climate resilient development linked to achieving SDGs, equity, and balancing societal priorities. Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, that's SDG. There's only limited opportunity to widen the remaining solution space and take advantage of many potentially effective yet unimplemented options for reducing society and ecosystem vulnerability. High confidence. In other words, we should be taking advantage of the time that is left to truly be as aggressive as possible in an attempt to mitigate the worst ends of this. Cheeseburger, Freedom, Eagle, howdy. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for joining. Prevailing development pathways are not advancing climate resilient development. Very high confidence. Societal choices in the near term will determine future pathways. Yeah, what we do now, the decisions or lack thereof, will determine future pathways. Which ones do we want? Which path do we want to take? There's no single pathway of climate that represents climate resilient development for all nations, actors, or skills, as well as globally, and many solutions will emerge locally and regionally. Global trends, including rising income inequality, urbanization, migration, continued growth in greenhouse gas emissions, land use change, human displacement, and reversal of long-term trends toward increased life expectancy, run counter to the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to climate change to a changing climate. With progressive climate change, enabling conditions will diminish, and opportunities for successfully transitioning systems for both mitigation and adaptation will become more limited. In other words, the longer we decide that we're just going to bury our heads in the sand, the more these options will start to be limited. Investments for economic recovery from COVID offer opportunities to promote climate resilient development. High confidence. System transitions can enable climate resilient development when accompanied by appropriate enabling conditions, including and inclusive arenas of engagement. Very high confidence. 5 system transitions are considered: energy, industry, urban and infrastructure, land and ecosystem, and societal. Advancing climate resilient development in specific contexts may necessitate simultaneous progress on all 5 transitions. Collectively, these system transitions can widen the solution space and accelerate and deepen the implementation of sustainable development, adaptation, and mitigation actions by equipping actors and decision makers with more effective options. High confidence. For example, urban ecological infrastructure linked to appropriate land use mix, street connectivity, open and green spaces, and job house proximity provides adaptation and mitigation benefits that can aid urban transformation. Medium confidence. These system transitions are necessary precursors for more fundamental climate and sustainable development transformations, but can simultaneously be outcomes of transformative actions. I'm convinced that there's only a few options. I'm convinced that there is only a few options for how my future will turn out. 1, climate change makes it to where we live in a Mad Max-style dystopia. 2, I'm a millennial. Hey, howdy. So I will have little to no social security / retirement and will work until I die. 3, World War III breaks out and the world ends. And with the way countries are treating climate change, I feel like a combo of 1 and 2 will most likely happen. Yeah, I would say that it is more likely that number 2 and 1 in that order, I would say. I'm going to shower, so I have high confidence that everyone in chat will turn on me and be mean, but please don't, because I have high confidence. Love you guys, but I'll be here later, so I can't read your disses. Thank you so much, Dr. Dragon Rider. I appreciate you hanging out. Yeah, I'm not gonna push back on that one, Fu Manchu. I mean, technically any one of these are in play. Enhancing equity and agency are cross-cutting considerations for all 5 transitions. Such transitions can generate benefits across different sectors and regions, provided that they are facilitated by appropriate enabling conditions, including effective governance, Lamau, including effective governance, policy implementation, Lamau, innovation, and climate and development finance, which are currently insufficient. That is the most generous way of saying, oh man, the softness of that language. Yeah. Including effective governance. Listen, the correct language that needs to be written here is, and this is verbatim, that should be included in the report. If we can't get our collective shit together, we're all effed. How about that? That's what should be replacing this right here. System transitions are highly feasible. For energy system transitions, there's a medium confidence and high feasibility of resilient infrastructure and efficient water use for power plants, and high confidence in the synergies of this option with mitigation. For coastal ecosystem transitions, there is medium to high confidence that ecosystem conservation and biodiversity management are increasing adaptive and ecological capacity with socioeconomic co-benefits and positive synergies with carbon sequestration. However, opportunity cost can be a barrier. For land ecosystem transitions, there's high confidence on the role of agroforestry to increase ecological and adaptive capacity once economic, cultural barriers, and potential land use change trade-offs are overcome. There is high confidence in improved cropland management and its economic feasibility due to improved productivity. For efficient livestock systems, there's medium confidence on the high technological and ecological feasibility. In other words, yeah, I don't know about that one. Alright, we made it to page 78, okay? We did good. I'm fine. Everything is fine. True. There's a limitation on the amount of plastics we can make to form solar, wind, and sustainable energy. This terrifies me because even by the time people get to it, such as finally become aware that we need to get the hell out of the hell on board with climate change technology, you probably won't have the resources to do it. I mean, like, if you're talking about plastics, there's ways of making plastics that don't involve like fossil fuels. There are ways of reusing things to create what we need, but these things need to have been deployed like probably decades ago. These things had to have been deployed decades ago, and well, what happens in the next couple of years at the turn will determine just how F things are, I guess. Good memes, everybody. Alright, folks, unfortunately, that is all the time I have today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I appreciate that. If you guys haven't already, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hit the follow button here on Twitch. Get 5 free emotes. Spread the word far and wide that this is the chillest place to be. We're here Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Join us on Saturdays, noon Eastern Time, for a chill version of the stream. Sad face, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, work calls, folks. You know. That being said, thank you so much, Heat. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the new follows, all the biddies. Thank you, Tina, for the tier 1 sub 8 months in a row. We're at 8 months. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I get it. Until Monday for me then. No worries. I'm just glad that you stopped by. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. Love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya! Alright, folks. We are heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya!